He is a member of my club, and his hobby is traveling around the world, which he often calls a journey of self-discovery. Recently, he visited a remote area in China, known for its herbal medicines. There, he saw various unusual items for sale, including pig's feet, monkey fingers, brains, and some animal testicles. When he returned, he shared his experience with a few of us, and brought back various souvenirs. Most were typical, like Chinese herbal medicines and keychains from the airport. However, there was one particular item, called a finger doll. The doll was flesh-covered, about the length of a soda can and as thick as a chikua, which is similar to a hollowed-out Japanese crab stick but just a little bit thicker. According to him, if you break one of the doll's fingers, you would be cursed. Naturally, everyone was intrigued and wanted to test it. Despite multiple attempts to break the doll's fingers, which were small, shiny and slippery, none of us could manage it. The excitement dwindled, and we eventually moved on and parted ways for the day. The next day, we heard shocking news. The person who had taken the doll died in an accident on the way home. He had been quite drunk, so it was uncertain whether the doll had any involvement in the accident. Nonetheless, what we found eerie was that the doll's body was found bent and misshapen, with a monkey's finger emerging from inside. This is a true story that happened in high school. Aikun, who was in the same class as me and on the baseball team in our second year of high school, was a really funny guy. When we didn't have lunch practice, we would talk and laugh about silly things. Aikun suddenly started to lose weight before summer vacation. I thought he was practicing too much and needed to eat more. He confided in me that he was worried because scary things had been happening to him lately. One night, while he was sleeping, he woke up to find a tall woman jumping on his stomach backwards, like a Maasai warrior. Initially, I laughed, thinking it was a joke, but he was serious. Concerned, we went to Anuma Hachiman together for an exorcism. After that, although he remained thin, nothing else seemed to change, and we entered summer vacation. I discovered that Aikun had passed away when I received an email from a classmate and a call from a teacher during the Obon period in August. At the wake, I remember people talking about it being a curse and consulting with others about it. There was no opportunity to ask his relatives about the cause of his death, but the teacher explained at the school morning assembly that his death was due to an accident. My grandmother used to perform prayers at my parents' house. She's since stopped. She often told me stories from a young age which led me to believe in spirits until I was in elementary and junior high school. However, lacking any psychic powers myself, I began to lose my belief by the time I entered high school. I started to doubt my grandmother, wondering, why does she lie about spirits? Is she a con artist? This skepticism led me to distance myself from her mentally. This estrangement persisted until about my second year of college. So, this is a story from my second year of college. One day, my mother and sister came to visit and stayed at my boarding house. We had dinner together, went to a super public bath, and on the way back, rented some DVDs from Tsutaya. My sister had rented a ghost-related movie, like True Cursed videos, so we decided to watch that before going to bed. We turned off the lights and watched the scary DVD. She picked the DVD at random, but the content was genuinely scary. Despite not believing in ghosts, horror movies and supernatural programs could still scare me. My sister and I watched the ghost videos with shivers, while my mother was already snoring 5 minutes after we turned off the lights. After the DVD, we turned on the lights, laid out the futon, and went to bed. My mother was sleeping on my futon in the loft, and my sister and I were sharing a futon, covered with towel blankets. After we turned off the lights, I couldn't fall asleep. Initially, I was just scared from the DVD. But gradually, something felt wrong. My whole body started shaking. I was breaking out in cold sweat, and my body temperature dropped rapidly. I also had a high-pitched ringing in my ears. These symptoms might sound like the early stages of a cold, but I didn't have a headache, sore throat, or fever, and I was fully conscious. I just couldn't stop shaking, sweating, and hearing the ringing. It was so terrifying that I was surprised by the intensity of my fear. My sister was right next to me, and my mother was asleep in the loft. But I felt as scared as if I were alone in an abandoned hospital at midnight. You might think I could have just turned on the lights, but at the time, the idea of a brightly lit room was equally scary. I felt like my room belonged to someone else entirely. Thinking, I'm definitely going to see a ghost tonight, I crawled into the towel blanket and clung to my sister. During the night, I heard footsteps walking around the futon for about 30 minutes, but I still don't know if I imagined them or not. By morning, my fear had faded away like a bad dream. I considered telling my sister and mother, but I thought they would make fun of me, so I just kept quiet. In the end, I didn't see any ghosts, and decided I must have just been extremely scared. However, the day after they left, I got a call from my parents' house. My sister's voice was very excited. The night we stayed at your place, Grandma had a strange feeling in her heart, so she did a spiritual reading of your room, and it was amazing. She said that a floating female spirit was in your room. It was a woman who had taken her own life. What's that? Is Grandma still there? No, she's already gone. But Grandma told me to tell you she did a spiritual reading and the woman is probably still there. Grandma said she'll mail you a talisman, so stick it to the north wall. I went to stay at my friend's house right after the phone call. The talisman arrived later by U-Pack, and I stuck it on the north wall as instructed. The same phenomenon never happened in the room after that, which is enough to make me believe in my grandmother again. The year I started elementary school, the house we lived in was upgraded from a single-story house to a newly built two-story one. At the time, I hated going up to the second floor at night. At night, I would always see a shadow-like thing on the landing of the stairs. I don't know if it was a person or an animal or something, but whatever it was always looking at me with a grin. Of course, I told my parents about it, but my mum and dad didn't take me seriously. They just thought I was scared of the dark. A little while later, a cat figurine was placed in the place where I'd always see the grin. Where on earth did they buy this cat figurine? It was a wooden ornament that looked like it had been brought from afar, and it wasn't the cute big-eyed one most people imagine. Its eyes were wide open, and its mouth was smiling, giving it a very creepy expression. Naturally, I was scared, and angrily pleaded with my parents to remove it. But my parents got angry in return, saying, "It was a souvenir that Grandma bought for us from, I don't recall the country anymore. I think it was somewhere in Southeast Asia. So why would you say something like that?" After that, I was frightened of the ornament for a while. But as I got older, I stopped thinking about it so much, and before I knew it, the ornament had been put away somewhere. Now I'm an adult and have a family. I only go back to my parents' house about twice a year. And when I went back this year for New Year's, I was drinking with my father and talking about those days. He told me that he would show me the face of his grandchild while he was still alive, and not to worry. My father, with a slightly red face, said, "Come to think of it, I should have shown him at least," and went to the Buddhist altar and came back with a book-like bolt of cloth. It was then that I found out for the first time that my family was of the Jo Shinshu sect. Instead of using memorial tablets to hold memorial services for the deceased, they wrote their names in a book instead. The book, which has the dates of the 1st to the 31st written on each page, had the names of our ancestors written here and there. Naturally, there were many names I had never heard of, but this is where the main point begins. In fact, both my father and grandfather were second sons, and had older brothers, but both of them lost their brothers when they were young. My paternal grandmother heard this story a long time ago, and out of curiosity, she looked into the matter. It turned out that at least from the end of the Edo period into my father's generation, all of the eldest sons and daughters in the family had died for some reason before they turned 15. My grandmother was pretty creeped out by this, and apparently went to consult a friend at a temple. But they were originally a poor farming family, so it would be difficult to find out where any grudges had been left by going back a little. All we found out was that the area around the plateau on which the house stands was not often inhabited or cultivated in the past. And, in the end, we never found out why this kept happening. Our father said that in poor times, such misfortunes could occur one after the other. I also learned at the time that the ornament my grandmother had bought a long time ago was actually a kind of talisman. But to be honest, my first child was born in May of this year. I believe that in this day and age, with plenty of food, clothing and shelter, there can't be such a curse. And yet, I still remember the shadow that I saw when I was young. I truly want to believe that the unpleasant coincidence ended with me. I know this isn't that scary, but it's a true story. When I was a child, I lived near a shopping street where everyone knew each other. The street started in front of a private railway station, about 20 minutes from Shinjuku. In the middle there was a bakery, a watch shop, and a sushi restaurant, all owned by the same landlord. Across the street stood a funeral parlor. At the end of my 3rd year of elementary school, the long-closed watch shop reopened as an udon restaurant. The store seemed to be thriving, even to children, but for some reason my parents didn't want to go there. That summer I passed by the udon restaurant on the way back from the bathhouse with Toko and me, who I had been friends with since kindergarten. The shutters on the pitch-black second floor were slightly open, and someone's face was half peeking out from there. I wonder what they're doing. The three of us looked up at the second floor and passed by. We thought it was probably someone from the restaurant. After a while, the udon restaurant closed down. I later heard the owner had a heart condition, was hospitalized, and passed away. A Chinese restaurant then took its place. It was affordable and delicious, attracting many customers. But again, my parents avoided it. Although they gave reasons like, it's bad for the soba restaurant, or the lady at the yakiniku restaurant will be sad, their behavior seemed odd, especially since my parents loved eating out. This aversion was shared by Toko's and me's parents, and some of my classmates as well. About 3 months after the Chinese restaurant opened, the owner died of a heart attack at a very young age. In the first semester of my 5th year of elementary school, the space became a coffee shop. A girl named Kana who worked there transferred to my class, and we quickly became good friends. She grew up in a single-parent household, and her mother ran the coffee shop by herself. Kana would stop by the shop when she got home from school, and when her mother closed the shop at 7 o'clock, she went back to her apartment with her. During the summer vacation that year, I passed by the coffee shop with Toko and me. on the way home from cram school. The shutters on the second floor were slightly open. There should have been no one there after 8 o'clock, but someone was peeking outside through the gap in the shutters. It was pitch black, and I couldn't see their faces. The hand on the shutter looked pitch black. "There's someone on the second floor of Kana's house," Toko said, turning around. "Yeah, I saw it too. It's not a thief?" Mi whispered as they walked. The three of us stopped and looked back, and the black shadow was still there. We ran into the funeral parlor where the lights were still on, thinking it was a thief. But the man at the funeral parlor said, "It's okay, get home quickly," and sent us off through a different route from the back door. Of course I told my parents, but they told me, "Don't tell anyone about it, and leave it to the funeral parlor." The funeral parlor was right across from the coffee shop, so maybe the man knew something. Kana's mother's coffee shop opened at 7 a.m. The menu only had coffee, breakfast service, and sandwiches. When I remember it, I tear up when I see Kana walking away with a thermos of coffee and a plate of sandwiches in her tanned arms. They had regular customers who got their food and coffee delivered to them. Places such as beauty salons, obstetricians, and daycare centers, and Kana helped out at the shop by delivering food and other items throughout the summer holidays. The day after seeing the black shadow, I talked with Toko and Mi, and went to the coffee shop on the way back from the school pool. It was a time when there were no deliveries, and we did our homework at the shop and took turns talking about the previous night. Kana said, "You must have seen things wrong. You can't go up to the second floor," she said, and showed us around the coffee shop. There was an external staircase leading to the second floor right behind the shop, and barbed wire was wrapped around it from the first floor to the door on the second floor. Several large boards were nailed to the place where the door was, so the door itself was not visible. The places on the left and right that looked like windows were also tightly boarded up. There were no stairs inside the shop. Apparently the second floor was the landlord's storage room, and no one had ever been in there. Kana didn't pay any attention to what we were saying. When we each went home and reported to our mothers, they scolded us for snooping around. From this reaction, we all began to realize that our mothers were hiding something. Then Toko, who was the smartest, realized the second floor couldn't be entered from the inside or outside. How on earth could a thief have gotten in? The idea of a ghost occurred to all three of us at the same time. The idea of a ghost made all three of us excited. Until that time, there had been rumors. 2 shopkeepers had died in succession, and some kids had even said it was a cursed shop. We had to protect Kana from the curse. With a foolish sense of mission, we headed to a shrine called Hachiman-sama near our school. We bought a charm that would work against curses and gave it to Kana. The problem was that Shino, who was in the same class, was the daughter of that shrine's priest. As expected, the priest, Shino's father, called Shino immediately. Seeing us coming here secretly, there was no way he would let us go home quietly. We made them swear to secrecy and told them the reason. Then Shino said something unbelievable. "My father has been to that shop 3 times to pray. The neighbors say that there is someone in the second floor window. The landlord and the police have come to our house before. Apparently no one can go upstairs. But if rumors spread, customers will stop coming, and Kana's mother will be in trouble. So don't tell anyone." I understand why Kana didn't pay attention to me. After that, neither we nor Shino talked about it. It's not a fictional story, but I have dramatized it mainly based on the conversation. Please forgive me, as it is a story from when I was in 5th grade of elementary school. Winter vacation started, and the coffee shop suddenly closed. I called and went to the apartment, but neither Kana nor her mother was there. When I went to ask my homeroom teacher, he told me that her mother was sick and that she was hospitalized in a local hospital near her parents' house, and that Kana was at her mother's parents' house. We had no way of being able to contact Kana. Kana's mother passed away before the end of the 3rd semester. We became middle school students. Toko moved to Kansai due to her father's job transfer. Me moved to a new house far away, and I went to the downtown area to go to high school. Although we kept in touch from time to time, we never went to the shopping street where we used to live. When we celebrated our coming-of-age ceremony, we all gathered at Hachiman's shrine, Shino's family home, for the first time in years. That was when I first heard the story of that store from Shino's mother. The store, which had been an udon restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, and a coffee shop, was originally a watch shop. The watch shop owner took over the store when he was about 30 years old, but he hated people and couldn't do business with customers, so he cut ties with his relatives. After that, he closed the store and shut himself in. The electricity and the telephone were cut off, and the landlord had no choice but to give up on collecting the rent. The people at the stores who had been concerned about him at first gradually forgot about him. After a long time had passed, one summer the bakery and the sushi restaurant on either side of him noticed a huge number of flies. The landlord rushed to the police station, and the police with a forensic team broke open the locked door to the staircase. The room was filled with the sound of black wings, rippling white waves, and small animals with bloodshot eyes. The cause of death was exhaustion. Apparently, "Someone help me" was written on the last page of the ledger in the desk. Shino's mother rubbed her arm and said, "That's why we couldn't go to that store." I think everyone's mothers were the same. The people who came were people from the housing complex and people across the train tracks. They didn't know that people died one after another. But a tenant came right away because the rent was half the market price. After Kana's mother died, the landlord turned the store into a warehouse. It seems that he still doesn't rent it to anyone. The funeral of the watchmaker was organized by the shopping district and the neighborhood association. The funeral parlor across the street did it for almost free. We built a grave for him at a nearby temple and asked for a permanent memorial service. We never missed visiting the grave. The store is now beautifully renovated and looks like new. It was a long time ago, so I don't remember the details, but I'll write it down as I remember it. Near my house there was an old memorial monument that kids called Yamaki's grave. It was a natural stone, about 1 meter high, set on a stone base. It seemed quite old, and the surface was covered with moss, so I couldn't read what was written on it. It was a little way into the dark bushes, and there were offerings placed there from time to time, so it had an awe-inspiring presence, even as a child. I don't remember the contents, but I think there were also some ghost stories attached to it. Now, this happened when I was in the 5th grade of elementary school. My friends and I made a secret base in the bushes where the memorial monument was, and we killed time by bringing in manga and snacks. One day, when we gathered at our secret base again, one of our friends, Tomo, said, "There's a bottle buried under Yamaki's grave, and there's a live catfish in it." Apparently, it was a story about an uncle who had come home for a relative's wedding, but there was zero credibility among our friends that a live catfish could be in a bottle underground. So Tomo asked me, Katsuaki, and Benny to dig under the foundation of the grave on Sunday. By the way, Katsuaki, Benny, and I have no psychic powers. We're not particularly strong people. We were curious and just followed him, hoping for gold coins or something. We gathered in the morning at Katsuaki's house near Yamaki's grave to do some homework, then had lunch and moved to the secret base. We were equipped with a flashlight, 2 shovels that someone had brought, and a jitte, a prize from a festival ring toss that Katsuaki had brought for some reason, and set off to the grave without any particular thought. We probably arrived at the grave around 2 o'clock. Clouds appeared, making it look like it was going to rain a little, and I remember it being muggy. For the time being, Tomo aimed for the catfish, and the other 3 of us started digging in front of the foundation, aiming for gold coins. The soil was quite hard, mixed with gravel, and we could only dig about 10 centimeters deep after 10 minutes of effort. We took turns digging for about an hour and reached about 50 centimeters deep. Nothing came out. We were children and getting bored. But then it started raining heavily, so we took refuge under a nearby tree. We saw the muddy water filling up the hole we had been digging, making it twice as troublesome. We decided to dig again next time. We decided to fill the hole with grass or something to prevent it from filling up. And as we were all raking up the grass and dead leaves around there, we heard a gurgling sound coming from the hole. A catfish? That's what I thought. Maybe everyone else had thought the same. We all gathered around the hole to look in, but the muddy water made it hard to see, and we couldn't put our hands in because we were afraid the catfish would bite. Sometimes bubbles would rise, and the water's surface would move. Tomo picked up a tree branch and tried to insert it into the hole. He moved it around for a while, but after hearing a grrr sound, like something was getting stuck, the branch couldn't be removed. I thought it might be a giant catfish, so no one bothered with the hole anymore. After being stunned for a while, Katsuaki walked up to the hole with the jitte in his hand. When he tried to stick it in, he screamed and ran away. We, out of curiosity, got closer, and Tomo, who was the first to look into the hole, also screamed and ran away. After that, I ran away in a chain reaction to the secret base. When I talked to Katsuaki and Tomo at the secret base, they said they saw a bloodless human mouth biting into the end of the branch in the muddy water. Since our base was in the same bush, we decided to evacuate to Katsuaki's house before heading home. I remember that Tomo looked embarrassed when we left, and Katsuaki looked a little proud. To my surprise, Tomo asked his brother to help him fill in the hole later. Apparently the branch had fallen over with the tip bitten off, but he was scared, so he quickly buried it and stamped it down. Maybe he felt responsible after all. After that, first Tomo, then Tomo's brother, hit their little toes hard, and it was said to be the Yamaki curse. Katsuaki was also the first in his class to grow hair, so it was said to be the Yamaki curse. If you have read this, and you have hit your little toe hard or grown hair, it could be a curse. Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. If you have a story to share, please send it to my email in the description below. This channel is mostly made up of stories sent in by viewers or people they know. Another way to support the channel is to sign up for my Patreon, where you can watch my videos ad-free. More perks will be added in the new year. Also, I will be adding new designs to the merch store, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you all for your continuous support. And remember, Papa loves you.